up, eat, do like extra credit, math homework, and then do it all over again. Some more exercise.
Are you getting exercise?
Yeah,
What are you doing for exercise? I'm curious.
running mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read about a guy who, I guess he lives in an apartment or a condominium, but it's in a high rise. And he's a doctor, but he knew how important running was. So he, I guess, on his Fitbit or his watch or something, he ran back and forth on his balcony and ran a 10K.
Wow.
I know. Can you imagine? I mean, like, I care about fitness and exercise, and I went out on a trail the other day, but I didn't want to get near anybody. So on one hand, I didn't want to be out there. On the other hand, there's no way I'm running a 10K back and forth on my balcony. I think I'd get dizzy and throw up.
Yeah.
So how far do you run, Jennifer?
I did a mile yesterday, and
Oh,
with my little brother. So
good for you.
yeah.
Well, hi, Deanna, and hi, Odalise. How are you two today?
I'm doing good, Dr. President, and you?
Good, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm
So,
doing good as well.
sorry, Deanna?
Oh, I'm doing good as well.
Oh, good. Well, one of the things that I was just telling Jennifer, I was just on a call with UCLA, and some of the professors and some of the people that were talking there were saying, kind of like us, their students didn't really want to break connection for spring break. Even if it was more casual, they really wanted to continue something that felt like normal. And so I shared what we were doing, and they were impressed because they thought that that was more of a university thing. They didn't see that or expect that that would come from a high school class. So I was bragging on you a little bit. I realized just before we got online today that for some reason, when I hit publish yesterday, I didn't check back on the course blog to see it. The post from yesterday didn't publish. So I put that up today, and today I'll make sure that it publishes. But if you missed out on seeing yesterday's or wondered where it was, that was my fault. So it should be up now. But right now, as far as I'm concerned, you can do no wrong. So just pick the journal entries and the posts that speak to you or that motivate you, and you can catch up on anything you want to, and you can move on from anything that maybe not so much. Does that make sense for you guys?
Yes.
Okay. So yesterday we had murder. Today we're going to have a chase. Now, that moment where Montag just heard the blowing of a single leaf, he turned and the mechanical hound was there. It was half across the lawn, coming from the shadows, moving with such drifting ease that it was like a single solid cloud of black-gray smoke blown at him in silence. It made a single last leap into the air, coming down at Montag from a good 3 feet over his head, its spidered legs reaching, the procaine needle snapping out its single angry tooth. Montag caught it with a bloom of fire, a single wondrous blossom that curled in petals of yellow and blue and orange about the metal dog, clad it in a new covering as it slammed into Montag and threw him 10 feet back against the bole of a tree, taking the flame gun with him. He felt it scrabble and seize his leg and stabbed the needle in for a moment before the fire snapped the hound up in the air, burst its metal bones at the joints, and blew out its interior in a single flushing of red color like a skyrocket fastened to the street. Montag lay watching the dead alive thing fiddle the air and die. Even now it seemed to want to get back at him and finish the injection which was now working through the flesh of his leg. So the hound had that needle poking out from its head, and Montag blew it up, but not before the needle pierced one point in his leg. He felt all the mingled relief and horror at having pulled back only in time to have just his knee slammed by the fender of a car hurtling by at 90 miles an hour. He was afraid to get up, afraid he might not be able to gain his feet at all with an anesthetized leg. A numbness in a numbness hollowed into a numbness. And now, the street empty. The house burnt like an ancient bit of stage scenery. The other homes dark. The hound here, Beatty there, the three other firemen another place, and the salamander? He gazed at the immense engine. That would have to go too. Well, he thought, let's see how badly off you are. On your feet now. Easy, easy there. He stood and he had only one leg. The other was like a chunk of burnt pine log he was carrying along as a penance for some obscure sin. When he put his weight on it, a shower of silver needles gushed up the length of the calf and went off in the knee. He wept. Come on, you can't stay here. Now I want to pause for a second. A shower of silver needles. I love that metaphor. Have you ever had your foot fall asleep?
Yeah.
How would you actually describe that to someone who had never had it happen?
It's like kind of similar. It's like little needles, like just poking you, like poking at your skin, like from all over.
Yeah, isn't that a great description?
Yeah.
I had someone say once to me that he said, when that happened to me, my foot felt like it tastes when I drink a soda too fast.
Oh, yeah.
Another one, get one?
Yeah.
Yeah. A few house lights were going on again down the street. Whether from the incidents just past or because of the abnormal silence following the fight, Montag did not know. He hobbled around the ruins, seizing at his bad leg when it lagged, talking and whimpering and shouting directions at it, and cursing and pleading with it to work for him now that it was vital. He heard a number of people crying out in the darkness and shouting. He reached the backyard and the alley. Beatty, he thought, you're not a problem now. You always said, don't face a problem, burn it. Well, now I've done both. Goodbye, Captain. And he stumbled along the alley in the dark. A shotgun blast went off in his leg every time he put it down, and he thought, you're a fool, a damn fool, an awful fool, an idiot, an awful idiot, a damn idiot, and a fool, a damn fool. Look at the mess, and where's the mop? Look at the mess, and what do? Pride, damn it, and temper, and you've junked it all. At the very start, you vomit on everyone and on yourself. But everything at once, everything on top of the other. Beatty, the women, Mildred, Clarice, everything. No excuse, though, no excuse. A fool, a damn fool. Go give yourself up. Have you ever had a moment when, doesn't matter what you actually did out there in the world, but you talked to yourself like this? Called yourself names, felt all negative about it, wished you could take it back? Does any of that ring a bell for you?
Yeah.
It totally did for me. I have that happen all the time, even now in my life. Sometimes I'll do something and then I'll just, oh man, I'll give it to myself. Now we'll save what we can. We'll do what there is left to do. If we have to burn, let's take a few more with us. Here. He remembered the books and turned back, just on the off chance. He found a few books where he had left them near the garden fence. Mildred, God bless her, had missed a few. 4 books still lay hidden where he had put them. Voices were wailing in the night, and flash beams swirled about. Other salamanders were roaring, their engines far away, and police sirens were cutting their way across town with their sirens. Montag took the 4 remaining books and hopped, jolted, hopped his way down the alley, and suddenly fell, as if his head had been cut off and only his body lay there. Something inside had jerked him to a halt and flopped him down. He lay where he had fallen and sobbed, his legs folded, his face pressed blindly to the gravel. Beatty wanted to die. Now, I'm going to hold this up so you can see that sentence. Let's see if I can find it for you. Can you see it's in italics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think the author wanted to put that in italics?
For one, to emphasize like how important it is to even think about it.
Yeah, exactly. So Montag is just about to get himself going. He's about to escape. And then all of a sudden, this realization dawns on him. And he's like, oh my God, how did I not see that? In the middle of the crying, Montag knew it for the truth. Beatty had wanted to die. He had just stood there, not really trying to save himself, just stood there, joking, needling, thought Montag. And the thought was enough to stifle his sobbing and let him pause for air. How strange. Strange to want to die so much that you let a man walk around armed. And then, instead of shutting up and staying alive, you go on yelling at people and making fun of them until you get them mad, and then, at a distance, running feet. Montag sat up. Let's get out of here. Come on, get up, get up. You just can't sit. But he was still crying, and that had to be finished. It was going away now. He hadn't wanted to kill anyone, not even Beatty. His flesh gripped him and shrank as if it had been plunged in acid. He gagged. He saw Beatty, a torch, not moving, fluttering out on the grass. He bit at his knuckles. I'm sorry. Oh God, sorry. He tried to piece it all together, to go back to the normal pattern of life, a few short days ago, before the sieve in the sand, Denham's dentrifice, moth voices, fireflies, the alarms and excursions. Too much for a few short days. Too much indeed for a lifetime. Now let's pause on that paragraph. When he says he tried to piece it all together, to go back to the normal pattern of life. If the coronavirus hadn't happened, if school hadn't closed, and we were sitting in class reading this sentence, well, actually today we wouldn't be, we would be on spring break. Would that sentence have made the same kind of sense to you that it does now?
No,
Why not?
because like now, like definitely our lives have definitely changed like dramatically, like because we're learning online and like for everyone it's different, you know. So like with that line, like we're turning back to some kind of normal. If we were still in school, it would still be that same kind of normal. We wouldn't know what it would be like to have a dramatic shift in like our lives.
That is so true. Jennifer and Odalise, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I agree with Didi. In addition, I also feel like, I don't know why, but like I see like a trend, like every time I'm in English class or history, I always find something that relates to the world. Something happens always that relates to the world. I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah. Well, and isn't that the whole point? So when we think about these things, we relate them to our own thoughts and feelings and experiences and memories. And one of the things, so today when I post on the course blog, I'm going to put up a link to an essay that I wrote about Fahrenheit 451 just a couple years ago because students asked me to. And one of the things I talk about was that when I was a student, I would read some of these books, but I wouldn't really understand them the way that I understand them now when I think about them. And I think about how it is for you now that we're in this moment where everything is different. And a lot of people are talking about a return to normal or the new normal. And when you read that sentence now, even as teenagers, as juniors in high school, you have a whole different set of experiences. And so this book makes a whole different kind of sense, which kind of makes it cool because if you imagine reading this book or Hamlet or anything else when you're older, it's not going to be the same thing, will it?
No, it won't.
Yeah, it won't. So here Montag is, and he's trying to feel like, oh man, if I could just go back to normal. Because, oh, here's the other thing. I don't know about you guys, but we've only been out of school for about a month, right? It doesn't feel like a month, does it?
No.
Sometimes it feels longer, sometimes it feels shorter, but a month seems like this weird marker. And like Jennifer was saying, all these days kind of run into the next day and the next day. It feels like it was just Friday, but now it's already Wednesday. Feet ran in the far end of the alley. So all of a sudden, he's out of his thoughts and he's right back to what's going on around him. Get up, he told himself. Damn it, get up, he said to the leg, and it stood. The pains were spikes driven in the kneecap, and then only darning needles, and then only common ordinary safety pins. And after he had shagged along 50 more hops and jumps, filling his hand with slivers from the board fence, the prickling was like someone blowing a spray of scalding water on that leg. And the leg was at last his own leg again. He had been afraid that running might break the loose ankle. Now, sucking all the night into his open mouth and blowing it out, pale, with all the blackness left heavy inside himself, he set out in a steady jogging pace. He carried the books in his hands. He thought of Faber. Faber was back there in the steaming lump of tar that had no name or identity now. He had burnt Faber too. He felt so suddenly shocked by this that he felt Faber was really dead. baked like a roach in that small green capsule, shoved and lost in the pocket of a man who was now nothing but a framed skeleton strung with asphalt tendons. You must remember, burn them or they'll burn you, he thought. Right now it's as simple as that. He searched his pockets. The money was still there. And in his other pocket, he found the usual seashell upon which the city was talking to itself in the cold black morning. Police, alert, wanted, fugitive in city, has committed murder and crimes against the state. Name, Guy Montag. Occupation, fireman. Last seen. He ran steadily for 6 blocks in the alley, and then the alley opened out onto a wide, empty thoroughfare 10 lanes wide. It seemed like a boatless river, frozen there in the raw light of the high white arc lamps. You could drown trying to cross it, he felt. It was too wide. It was too open. It was a vast stage without scenery, inviting him to run across, easily seen in the blazing illumination, easily caught, easily shot down. The seashell hummed in his ear. Watch for a man running. Watch for the running man. Watch for a man alone on foot. Watch. Montag is almost like an early edition of the Amber Alert. You know how when there's a child abduction, you get a notice on your phone? Well, this
Yeah.
is the city using the news and using those earbuds as a way to alert everyone. Montag pulled back in the shadows. Directly ahead lay a gas station, a great chunk of porcelain, snow shining there, and 2 silver beetles pulling in to fill up. Now he must be clean and presentable if he wished to walk, not run, stroll calmly across that wide boulevard. It would give him an extra margin of safety if he washed up and combed his hair before he went on his way to get where? Yes, he thought, where am I running? Nowhere. There was nowhere to go. No friend to turn to, really, except Faber. And then he realized that he was indeed running towards Faber's house, instinctively. But Faber couldn't hide him. It would be suicide even to try. But he knew that he would go see Faber anyway, for a few short minutes. Faber's would be the place where he might refuel his fast-training belief in his own ability to survive. He just wanted to know that there was a man like Faber in the world. He wanted to see the man alive and not burned back there like a body shelled in another body. And some of the money must be left with Faber, of course, to be spent after Montag ran on his way. Perhaps he could make the open country and live on or near the rivers and near the highways, in the fields and hills. A great whirling whisper made him look to the sky. The police helicopters were rising so far away that it seemed someone had blown the head off of a gray dandelion flower. 24 of them flurried, wavering, indecisive, 3 miles off, like butterflies puzzled by autumn. And then they were plummeting down to land, one by one, here, there, softly kneading the streets, where turned back to beetles, they shrieked along the boulevards, or, as suddenly, leapt back into the air, continuing their search. And here was the gas station, its attendants busy now with customers. Approaching from the rear, Montag entered the men's washroom. Through the aluminum wall, he heard a radio voice saying, "War has been declared." The gas was being pumped outside. The men in the beetles were talking, and the attendants were talking about the engines, the gas, the money owed. Montag stood trying to make himself feel the shock of the quiet statement from the radio, but nothing would happen. The war would have to wait for him to come to it in his personal file, an hour, 2 hours from now. He washed his hands and face and toweled himself dry, making little sound. He came out of the washroom and shut the door carefully, and walked into the darkness, and at last stood again on the edge of the empty boulevard. There it lay, a game for him to win, a vast bowling alley in the cool morning. Have you guys ever tried to cross Stowell after school? Or Broadway?
I think I have. Broadway's the one. Is that the one on where Jack in the Box is on that
Yes.
crosslight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stowell's the one that goes over to like JCPenney and Starbucks.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, I see students every day running like across the lanes of traffic, like playing Frogger and trying to figure out how far away the cars are. at least in our, and that's just dumb enough, but at least in our culture, cars are supposed to stop, even if it's not a corner, because they don't want to run somebody over. Compare that with this. The boulevard was as clean as the surface of an arena 2 minutes before the appearance of certain unnamed victims and certain unknown killers. The air over and above the vast concrete river trembled with the warmth of Montag's body alone. It was incredible how he felt his temperature could cause the whole immediate world to vibrate. He was a phosphorescent target. He knew it. He felt it. And now he must begin his little walk. 3 blocks away, a few headlights glared. Montag drew a deep breath. His lungs were like burning brooms in his chest. His mouth was sucked dry from running. His throat tasted of bloody iron, and there was rusted steel in his feet. What about those lights there? Once you started walking, you'd have to gauge how fast those beetles could make it down here. Well, how far was it to the other curb? It seemed like 100 yards. Probably not 100, but figure for that anyway. Figure that with him going very slowly at a nice stroll, it might take as much as 30 seconds, 40 seconds to walk all that way. Beetles, once they started, they could leave 3 blocks behind them in 15 seconds. So even if halfway he started to run, he put his right foot out, and then his left foot, and then his right. He walked on the empty avenue. Even if the street were entirely empty, of course, you couldn't be sure of a safe crossing, for a car could appear suddenly over the rise 4 blocks further on and be on and past you before you'd taken a dozen breaths. He decided not to count his steps. He looked neither to the left nor the right. The light from the overhead lamps seemed as bright and revealing as the midday sun, and just as hot. He listened to the sound of the car picking up speed 2 blocks away. Its movable headlights jerked back and forth suddenly and caught at Montag. Keep going. Montag faltered, got a grip on the books, and forced himself not to freeze. Instinctively, he took a few quick running steps and talked out loud to himself and pulled up the stroll again. He was now half across the street, but the roar from the Beetle's engines whined higher as it put on speed. The police, of course, they see me. But slow now, slow, quiet. Don't turn, don't look, don't seem concerned. Walk. That's it. Walk. The Beetle was rushing. The Beetle was roaring. The Beetle raised its speed. The Beetle was whining. The Beetle was in high thunder. The Beetle came skimming. The Beetle came in single whistling trajectory fired from an invisible rifle. 120 miles an hour. It was up to 130 at least. Montag clamped his jaws. The heat of the racing headlights burnt his cheeks, it seemed, and jittered his eyelids, and flushed the sour sweat out all over his body. He began to shuffle idiotically and talk to himself, and then he broke and just ran. He put out his legs as far as they would go, and down, and then far out, and down, and back out, and down and back. God, God! He dropped a book, broke pace, almost turned, changed his mind, plunged on, yelling in concrete emptiness, the Beetle scuttling after its running food, 200, 100 feet away, 90, 80, 70. Montag gasping, flailing his hands, leg up, leg down, up, down, out, closer, calling, his eyes burnt white now as his head jerked about to confront the flashing glare. Now the Beetle was swallowed in its own light. Now it was nothing but a torch hurtling upon him, all sound, all blare, almost on top of him. He stumbled and fell. I'm done. It's over. But the falling made a difference. An instant before reaching him, the wild Beetle cut and swerved out. It was gone. Montag lay flat, his head down. Wisps of laughter trailed back to him with the blue exhaust from the Beetle. His right hand was extended above him flat. Across the extreme tip of his middle finger, he saw now, as he lifted that hand, a faint 16th of an inch of black tread where the tire had touched in passing. He looked at that black line with disbelief, getting to his feet. That wasn't the police, he thought. He looked down the boulevard. It was clear now. A car full of children, all ages, God knew, from 12 to 16, out whistling, yelling, hurrahing, had seen a man, a very extraordinary sight, a man strolling, a rarity, and simply said, "Let's get him." not knowing he was the fugitive Mr. Montag. Simply a number of children out for a long night of roaring 500 or 600 miles in a few moonlit hours, their faces icy with wind, and coming home, or not coming, at dawn, alive or not alive. That made the adventure. They would have killed me, thought Montag, swaying, the air still torn and stirring about him in dust, touching his bruised cheek. For no reason at all in the world, they would have killed me. He walked toward the far curb, telling each foot to go and keep going. Somehow he had picked up the spilled books. He didn't remember bending or touching them. He kept moving them from hand to hand as if they were a poker hand he could not figure. I wonder if they were the ones who killed Clarice. He stopped and his mind said it again very loud. I wonder if they were the ones who killed Clarice. He wanted to run after them yelling. His eyes watered. The thing that had saved him was falling flat. The driver of the car, seeing Montag down, instinctively considered the probability that running over a body at such high speed might turn the car upside down and spill them out. If Montag had remained an upright target, Montag gasped. I'm going to pause there. What are your thoughts hearing that?
That's crazy.
What was that?
I just feel like all of that's just like crazy because like now he's on the run, but like those kids, like I don't know.
Yeah, so this society feels like a threat to him one way or the other. On the one hand, you've definitely got the police now because he's killed Captain Beatty. But in a way, this society kills people every day just because. It kills them by not letting them think, not letting them feel. Mildred was so distraught that without even knowing it, she wanted to kill herself. People are running each other over. Clarice got hit by a car, seems like. It's wacky. So, Odalise, you mentioned earlier that it seems sometimes like when you read things or hear things in social studies or English, you connect them to real life. Does this seem for any of you like, is it just nuts, or is it, wow, there are people in our society who don't value human life that much? Or I'm curious, what are your impressions?
I think it's more like a wow.
Wow, how?
Like, for example, you were saying about crossing the street. I know sometimes when I'm late for the bus, because I ride to the bus every day so I can go home, because it's like a 50-minute walk.
Yeah.
And I ride the public bus, and sometimes I'm late. And if I'm late to the bus station, I'm 30 minutes late home. So sometimes my sister and I run, and sometimes we have, like, we don't have to, but sometimes we do jaywalk the streets. But not on Broadway. There are other like shorter streets where we like tend to run because there's less cars, but still, you're still jaywalking, which is not like it's not like it's not good in a way. So I can see like the points that you were giving out.
Yeah, it's funky because you're never sure. It's not just whether the driver wants to. I mean, I don't think most drivers in our culture would actually do what he's describing. But at the same time, I used to ride a road bike a lot on the Central Coast and in Los Angeles and Southern California. I would ride for hundreds of miles, and I don't anymore. I'm terrified because all it takes is a minute of one driver going and then not seeing me, and that's it.
Oh, I've also seen people like that. I know people from church because I serve at church, and when I used to walk home, before my sister was in freshman year, so this year she was introduced to high school. So before that, I would always follow all the rules. I would always because she's more like she goes. Wait, Emily. I'm sorry. So like I would always follow the rules and wait for the cars to stop. But sometimes when I know the cars are supposed to stop because there's no lights, but they're supposed to stop because they're far away and they've seen the stop sign, they don't stop. And I've seen people from church do that, and I'm like, oh my God, I know you're from church, and you guys don't stop. Are you guys using your cell phones? Because sometimes they are using their cell phones, and then I see them at church, and they're like, I'm so sorry, I almost ran you over, and I'm like, yeah, like just try to make sure you're on your phone, or just try to. There was a stop sign. I don't even know what to say, but that I was afraid to like cross the streets. Some streets like on Stonewall by the by Battles, the big street.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to cross that one. So I don't know. I mean, like I was also afraid to like walk on the road, but I started using the bus, which kind of made me more comfortable on the streets now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you know, the Central Coast is different than Los Angeles because in Los Angeles, I don't recognize anybody in a car. But on the Central Coast, you're right. Once in a while, you do. And so on one level, you're saying, hey, you're a nice person. I understand that wasn't your intention. And at the same time, you're thinking, you could kill me.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and post. And hearing Emily's voice reminded me, I was planning on 3:00 tomorrow for the Dr. Seuss stuff. I want to make a slideshow of the pages so that you can see and show her clearly while I'm doing it. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get that together, but I'll know for sure by the time we meet tomorrow at 1. So one way or the other, I'll have an answer for you. And if it's not this Thursday, then it'll be the next week.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good, Dr. Preston.
All right. Does anybody else have any closing thoughts? Okay. On that note, I'll say see you until tomorrow at 1:00. If you need anything in the meantime, I'm on email, and I'll try and get this posted in the next hour.
Okay, bye, Mr. Preston.
Okay. Bye, everybody.